Pamela, what are the greatest advantages that women business owners or entrepreneurs in emerging markets have at the moment? And similarly, what disadvantages or barriers do they face that you believe need to be addressed and eliminated urgently?
Thanks so much, Haydé. The first advantage, I would say, and this has occurred actually on turbocharge in the digital world, COVID has literally transformed how trade happens. It's almost tripled the amount of digital trade. So digitalization actually is now the greatest advantage that women traders have. One, because it's online and therefore it lowers their costs. Their overhead costs for physical space, for storage, they can literally operate from anywhere. The second reason is that it also has an anonymity. And because of that, any kind of discrimination vis-a-vis gender is lessened. They can be anything behind the wall of a screen. And so that is the biggest, I find, benefit right now, advantage. On the disadvantage side, globally, what we found is one, access to finance. That continues to be the biggest challenge.
This is a recurring theme.
Recurring decimal. It is a recurring theme, and it's something that we have to address. So what we do is we try to work with women to help them access finance, to put in place the kinds of mechanisms. One thing we found is most collateral that's requested is 125% of their business. 125%. Nobody can afford that. The second thing is that they also are unable to meet some of the requirements for paperwork because so many of them are informal and they're small and they're not in the industries that require that kind of paperwork. So we want to try to also see how we can work with them to build up their capacity to get financing. The informality of the sector is another issue. Many women are informal, at least 50%. How do we get them to move into a more formal space so that they can qualify for access, for financing? And these are the general disadvantages that we found for women. The issue of discrimination is also a huge thing, especially on the cross-border trade in Africa. But we have decided, okay, how do we help them through trade facilitation address those challenges?
And you work, of course, on the international scale,
Yes.
in international trade. Can you tell us what are the opportunities for women that bridge international trade between African countries and international markets? And here I'm talking both for African-owned women businesses to make it into global markets, but also opportunities from trade going the other way, from other parts of the world into Africa.
Sure. I would say there are a few. The opportunities, for example, under the African Continental Free Trade Area, which we were talking about earlier. I think one of the first things that needs to happen is women need to begin to understand what is the AFCFTA about and what are the potential areas that they can engage. Because it is a game changer. It is going to completely transform not only intra-African trade, but trade between Africa and other countries. It is going to reposition, both geopolitically and trade-wise, how Africa is seen and how Africa engages with the world. And so the opportunities under the AFCFTA are myriad. We have done studies, a Made by Africa study, that looked at the 94 most powerful value chains that could work across Africa. And we narrowed it down to 4 main ones. That's pharmaceutical, automotives, textiles and apparel, and baby food. And what we found is that those are the ones that actually can move quickly. So you start with the front runners and then you move forward. The other area that's very important is utilizing the digital space in a more concerted and definitive way. We, for example, have worked with a company in Ghana called Adi and Bulga. And what they have done is turned AI as a useful tool for makeup for Black women. Because what it is able to do is to utilize artificial intelligence technology to look at our skin in a different way and actually target the dermatological impact of, how our skin is different. And therefore our makeup needs to be adjusted to address our skin, which is a blind spot, as we know, in the beauty industry. We've also worked with women in Rwanda on digital engagement blockchain for coffee production that helps with the digital traceability of the coffee value chain. which increases their sales value and also increases their potential for markets, especially in the organic market field. And then the final thing is what I call the strategic multi-stakeholder partnerships. This opportunity is important because we work with companies, for example, like DHL, that we manage to say to them, help these small businesses, women-owned businesses especially, get preferential packages to send their products abroad. And so they get lower rates. They're able to send to the US, to Europe, everywhere at lower rates. We also work with eBay in Kenya to put products online, right? So that they can sell and be part of the whole e-commerce industry. So these are the opportunities that we've seen that have been emerging and that more and more women are taking advantage of.
And staying on this these themes around the African continental free trade area, Pamela, have you found in your work at the International Trade Center that women have access, not just to finance, but access to the information they need about how this free trade area really impacts them? Because as you and I were talking about, you may watch this on television and see we do all these agreements are being signed, and it looks wonderful on the international stage, but for women who have to go out there and really face the on-the-ground realities, what needs to be done in that area still, and what have you found? What are women telling you?
Okay, so we did actually, ITC did a study, a survey of thousands of women across Africa about their knowledge of the AFCFTA agreement, what it means. 75% of them did not know about it, did not know what it was. And so we realized that this is going to be a significant problem, because if we're moving into an agreement that is supposed to transform intra-African and African external trade, then the people who are involved need to know. So what we did is we partnered with 50 women's business associations across Africa. We also are able to cover over 1 million women who are engaged with those business associations. Through our She Trades initiative, what we have also done is we've launched How to Export under the AFCFTA. We've done training programs to engage women, to explain to them what is going to be required, the issues to do with rules of origin, standards, market intelligence, etc. We've also tried to work with them on how to impact the new market spaces that will be open, especially in cross-border trade. We've also looked at them, helped to work with packaging, labeling, all of these new things that are going to emerge and are going to become even more important. The knowledge factor is critical because, as I said, I've negotiated agreements my entire life, and I've seen too many of them sit on shelves and never translate to real trade. And so for me, the AFCFTA needs to be one of those that goes beyond that. And I think the protocol on women and youth is also specifically designed to try to address that issue as well. And so we're working with the AFCFTA Secretariat. We've signed an MOU with them. We're also working with the African Union, as well as the Economic Commission on Africa and various other African entities. The other thing we do is we also work with the business support organizations in each country. So we work as almost like a interlocutor with the Nigerian Export Promotion Corporation. We work with GEPA, which is the Ghana Export Promotion Agency. We work with the South Africans. We work with Zim Trade. We work with Ken Trade. So we work across the continent also on ensuring that they, as the BSOs, are able to support their constituents as well. So it's a kind of train the trainers, giving them the capacity and benchmarking them to be able to help their own businesses in the field.
What is your advice to women about what they can do in their businesses to increase their chances of gaining access to finance and investment? And here I mean advice that women can immediately apply to their
right
work.
now.
Right.
Okay, so let me just give you a kind of outline of what we've done in the area of access to finance. Just in 2019, we launched a She Trades Invest Care Fund with Bamboo Capital. And the idea was, how do we link the lack of access to finance to capital providers and kind of create a space where women can get access to, whether it's venture capital or other forms of capital. We also work with women to prepare them to make the pitch, because most don't have that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we work with them through this to help them make it. And then we also work with financial institutions on the other side to also help them to become more gender, balanced. Yes, right. Because there are things that, most financial institutions have a traditional approach. Bring the collateral, bring the piece of paper with the land. Most women are not on that piece of paper, and this is a reality. So what we try to do is also work with the banking institutions to say, look, how do you facilitate a gender lens approach to what you do? So for women, the advice I'd give is the first thing, focus on the basics. Get your paperwork together. If you're going to go to people to ask them to invest, you kind of have to have a good argument. So get somebody to help you with the paperwork. We can do that. Help you with the paperwork. Make sure also that you're online. I'll never forget a gentleman came to work with some fashion industry people I was working with in the Caribbean. And he said, the first thing he said was, look, I Googled all the fashion and all the people in this program. None of you were online. You don't exist. That's what he said. You don't exist. If you need an online presence, even a name and a picture, right? But you need something that people can find you, right? And so that's also important. It's important to go digital. The other thing is to ensure that you are able to engage with partners and with organizations that can help you. So reach out, whether it's to your own business support organization, whether it's to us through the She Trade Invest program. It's online. You can go on shetrades.com. You will find all of that. And just ensure that you understand that there's opening there are people looking out for you, and that there's opportunity.
Pamela, we of course globally, women are probably hardest hit and most impacted by the economic downturn we are seeing around the world, and of course still recovering from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, of course, we understand business is cyclical, but during these down cycles, what can be done to ensure that women don't lose the gains that they have already made?
Well, first of all, the last 2 years have seen a significant, setback for women. Significant. Over 2 million women left the work world because of COVID, because they had to look after kids. That's the reality. So taking that into account, how can we create an ecosystem that better supports women? And I think that that is the fundamental issue here. We can add all kinds of other, what would I call it, programs and mechanisms. But if the ecosystem itself does not lend itself to the realities that women face, then all the other programs are simply icing on a cake that doesn't exist. And so one of the first things I think in terms of addressing, what women face is, I was at a World Economic Forum program 2 weeks ago talking to business leaders. And they were talking about women and the seat at the table, which is the general statement. And I said to them, I was thinking about it. I think a lot at 3 a.m. So I was thinking about it, and I said, this is the problem. I don't want women to have a seat at the table. I want women to also design the menu.
Wow.
I want women to look at the plate settings. In other words, we need to have a construct where women aren't just invited to the table after it's already set and designed. We need to be understanding how this meal got here, what constituted this meal, how do we fit into making this meal what it is, and what are the plate settings so that I'm not put at the end of the table at the very back.
And then we'll still talk about the portion we get from what it's served.
Exactly.
Pamela Coke-Hamilton, thank you so very much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.